I've helped over 20 businesses in the past 12 years to optimize their tech, streamline operations, and cut inefficiencies that cost millions by refining their IT strategy, implementing ERP and CRM systems, and then integrating them with other critical business applications. And in this video, I'm going to share 9 hard truths that I've learned about IT and digital transformation that most businesses get wrong. Now, number 9 is the biggest hack, so I hope you stick around till the end. All right, let's get to it. Buying software is not the same as a business transformation. Now, I've seen companies drop millions on ERP and CRM systems and expecting magic without any process changes, no governance, and no adoption strategy. Just a few years ago, the company I worked with implemented a huge ERP system, but 6 months later, they were still doing most of their operations on spreadsheets. You see, tech is just a tool, and without fixing business processes first, you're just buying a very expensive mess. Now, ERP Focus is one of the biggest marketplaces for digital transformation products. And if you look at the top 10 reasons for why these systems and projects fail, it's pretty obvious why this client failed. You see, they didn't have a problem with budget. They had plenty of money. But what they lacked was the strategy, understanding the products, understanding the business process, and the commitment, which is why the system ended up failing. Which brings me to hard truth number 2. 99% of companies waste their IT investments. You see, most businesses only use up about 30 to 40% of their core business systems like ERP, CRM, or even their service desk. Now, you can use tools like software asset management systems to track this. But if your team doesn't know how a system improves their workflow, or how to get to the fastest return on investment, or how to adapt processes around it, you're just wasting money on software that isn't delivering value. I once worked for a client who was paying for 5 different project management tools across their teams. They had Microsoft Project, Azure DevOps, Jira, Trello, and Monday.com. And it turned out they only needed one. So we consolidated all the projects into one product that did it well, and they ended up saving a good 6 figures each year just on licensing. Which then brings me to hard truth number 3. You don't need new tech to drive a transformation. You see, tech enables a transformation, but it doesn't create it. If you can fix collaboration and decision-making first, you'll end up unlocking 10 times more value before spending a single dollar on any new tools. One client that I worked with thought their CRM system was broken because sales weren't converting. Leads were getting lost, follow-ups weren't happening, and deals were slipping through the cracks. They were ready to drop hundreds of thousands on a new system. But the issue wasn't the CRM, it was how they were using it. You see, their sales process wasn't mapped properly. Automation for lead tracking and follow-ups was switched off by default, and the team wasn't trained on how to move deals through each stage of the sales lifecycle. So instead of replacing the system, what we ended up doing was we activated existing features like duplicate lead detection and automating lead follow-ups, and we trained the team on things like Sales Accelerator. And about 3 months later, the close rates increased by about 20% without spending a single dime on any new software. See, businesses often don't need new tools. They just need proper configuration, process alignment, and a little bit of training. Number 4, documentation makes or breaks IT projects. See, if you don't document, you have to expect chaos. Projects will stall, teams will rework, and no one knows what's going on. Now, on the writing side of documentation, I once worked at a consulting firm where no one cared about documentation. Projects kept failing, deadlines were slipping, and clients were getting frustrated. I started documenting everything just for my sanity. And on one major ERP, CRM, and integration project, and all in one, teams were stuck doing rework because no one had shared visibility. I built a documentation and collaboration framework just using SharePoint, a place for us to map and put our workflows in, and got buy-in from the stakeholders. And the result was we cut the implementation time by about 2 months, and we started applying that same work for other projects, and teams finally started to work together. Now, on the reading side, there was one client who tried to build a custom sales process from scratch for a very sophisticated sales process, and they overcomplicated everything. We followed the product documentation and just enabled a few out-of-the-box tools and customized them, and 80% of their problems just disappeared, and they had a lot less customization to maintain. You see, documentation isn't just paperwork that is busy work. It's what stops projects from becoming expensive disasters. Hard truth number 5. IT and business must speak the same language. You see, IT and business teams often talk past each other. And I saw this with the finance team in IT, where finance needed stable reports for month end, and IT had to push updates for compliance. And every update started breaking the reports and create chaos and frustration inside finance. But the real issue was they weren't communicating. IT didn't fully understand finance's needs, and finance wasn't involved in the update process for their ERP system. The fix was we got them talking. Finance tested the updates in a sandbox environment before IT rolled them out. And IT set up rollback plans and documented the changes. And suddenly there were no more surprises, no more disruptions, just smooth updates and smoother month ends. See, when IT and business stay in sync, you avoid crises and you work smarter and drive real results. This brings us to number 6. Repurpose what works. At the start of every project, I like to look at previous implementations. What worked, what didn't work, and what's the fastest way I can scale those successes. But most businesses, unfortunately, love to reinvent the wheel and waste months in the process. There was one client whose ERP rollout was a mess. It was always missing deadlines, rising costs, and frustrated teams. Now, this was an industry that was new to us. So what we ended up doing was we studied a similar company's successful approach instead of starting from scratch and trying to build as we go. We took their best practices, tweaked them for our needs, and went live 2 months earlier than predicted with smoother adoption and a fewer headaches, all while saving time and money. I also like to learn from people like Eric Kimberling, people in the industry who are doing it really well. He's one of the best independent ERP and digital transformation consultants, and he has a lot of resources. If you look at his case studies, there's tons on different industries and different ERP systems, which everyone can really learn from. I've learned a ton from him. Hard truth number 7. Business transformation fails without adoption. See, an underused system is just expensive shelfware. If companies invested even half of what they invest on a new system on change management and training, they would save millions in wasted effort. Because then everyone goes in the journey together. I once saw companies spending millions on an AI-powered analytics tool. 2 years later, less than 10% of the team was using it. Why? Because there was no training, no onboarding, and no adoption strategy. Just an expensive piece of software that was gathering dust. Number 8, consistency beats big overhauls. See, one company wanted a massive IT overhaul. They were so convinced that scrapping everything that they have that isn't working for them was the only fix. But just like the CRM example that I mentioned earlier, the issue wasn't with the system. They were using a best-in-class set of applications. It was how they were using it. So instead of ripping everything apart, we focused on consistent small automation tweaks, like streamlining approvals, reducing manual data entry, automating reports. And so every week, we tackled one pain point. A year later, their productivity was up by 40% without the costly project or rebuild or new digital transformation. See, businesses assume that they need something new and big when all they really need to do is just configure their system properly and train their teams better. These small, steady changes made a bigger impact than any big bang transformation ever could. Which brings me to the final one. You can unlock millions from your existing systems. You see, most companies don't need new software. They need better system adoption, data-driven decision-making, and clear ownership and accountability within their teams. So before spending big on new solutions, ask yourselves or ask your companies, are we using what we already have effectively? The CRM system that we fixed earlier, instead of replacing it, added a couple of $1 million a year later in revenue growth without switching platforms, and hundreds of thousands because we didn't start a huge unnecessary replacement project, right? So that's it. Those are the 9 hard truths about IT strategy and business transformation that I've learned over the years. So if you're running a business, take a second and ask yourself, how many of these apply to you? Are you actually getting the most out of your IT investments, or are there inefficiencies that are quietly costing you time and money? Now, to help with this task, I put together a free IT optimization scorecard that businesses can use to help uncover hidden gaps, wasted spend, and overlooked inefficiencies in their IT strategy. You can access it from the link in the description, and what it's going to do is ask you a couple of simple questions on your business, your systems, automation, training, decision-making and data, cyber, etc., etc. And what it's going to do after that is give you an overall score on your IT and systems from strategic IT viewpoint. And for each area, depending on how you scored, it will give you a score individually, some quick wins and actionable strategies based on where you are in your optimization journey. Now, it's completely free, and you get the report via email. And to take a step further, I will also email you a PDF report that has a lot more detail and an action plan inside when you reply to the email saying PDF. And this PDF is a complete report that has all the areas scored, what it means for your overall IT score, and actionable strategies that will help you take those insights into action. If your score is bad, it will tell you what to do about it to fix it fast. And if your score is good in an area, it will tell you how to maintain that and improve it. I'd like to hear from you what you think number 10 should be.